I built a custom object. I created a workflow to send myself an email. I went to check my inbox, and then like many of you have done before, you went back and activated the workflow, and then went and checked your inbox, and there it was. And I was hooked. I was so excited about what I could do with this platform. That was 9 years ago, and it began a journey that takes me from my hometown in Bozeman, Montana, to India Dreamin. And I'm very excited to be here. 2 years after I logged in for the first time, I started my own business. I had no business experience. I had no certifications in Salesforce. I had no clients. I had no capital. And after reading this list, it appears I had no common sense either. But I started my own company, and I'm glad to say that we have grown into a much larger company. So we are still a small team, and I like having a small team. But my small team is really amazing. So out of my 10 staff, 6 of my staff are senior consultants, and out of those 6 staff, 3 of them are Salesforce MVPs. So we're really proud of the work that they've done in the community. So Joni Martin and Angela Adams, who are part of my staff, started Girlforce, which is a women in technology user group community and has over 3,000 members. Michelle Regal, who's on staff with us, she co-hosted or co-founded Dreamin, and has implemented Salesforce for over 100 television stations through a nonprofit called PBS. And Arshna from Daysworks works with my team as well. We're very excited to have her on our team. She does a great job. Is she here today? Yep. Hi, Arshna. So nice to meet you. Anybody else from Daysworks here? All right. Very nice to meet you. So my company also partners with Daysworks, with Shiv. We're very excited about that. That's new this year and has been really exciting and part of the reason that I'm here. So with all of these amazing staff, you may wonder why I'm the one that's here talking to you, and that's for a very simple reason. I own the company, and I wanted to come to India, so here I am. Go ahead. Thank you. I want to tell you the secret to becoming a nonprofit rock star in Salesforce. And it starts with one thing. You must help nonprofits. That's the secret. Help them. That's what they really need. And they need you to give your best when you're helping them. That's the first secret. I know, these are not like very big secrets. They're kind of obvious, but they're also really important. The second secret is you're not the only one giving. So don't think that it is just about what you do. There's also what Salesforce gives, and there's what an entire community of other Salesforce practitioners give as well. So I want to talk about what nonprofits need help with. So they don't need help knowing how to feed people or heal people, provide medicine. They do that really well. They've been doing that from the beginning of their organization. What most nonprofits, at least nonprofits in the United States, what most nonprofits have not done is figure out how to do business processes. And in fact, many nonprofits don't think of themselves as businesses or as organizations that need business process. When you're thinking about how to help nonprofits, what they really need from you is to think about their business. That's what they most need. So your job is to give your best, to work with what Salesforce and the community provides, and to focus on their business. Help them do their business better. That's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about 3 things. You like the arrow right there? That's where we're at. We're going to first talk about what Salesforce gives. We're going to talk about what you give. And third, we're going to talk about what the community gives. All right? Go ahead. Salesforce started with this unique idea. Mark Benioff thought, what would happen if a company would give 1% of its people, 1% of its resources, and 1% of its technology? What if they would give that away? What would happen? And it was an interesting idea, and he started Salesforce with a pledge to give 1% away. Now to hear him talk about it, he says that was a free idea because 1% of zero is still zero. So when it started, it amounted to almost nothing, and that was in 1999. Today, what it has accomplished is people have donated or have volunteered for over 1 million hours. That's what happens from this small idea of giving 1%, 1 million hours. It has given over 168 million in grants, and most importantly to this conversation, 30,000 nonprofits use the Salesforce platform for their business. That's 30,000 nonprofits that are using Salesforce at a highly discounted rate. And this is the underpinnings of what Salesforce gives. So it's really important to know this. Now, the numbers and statistics that I'm giving are all based on US numbers, not on India numbers. So I apologize, but I don't know how those numbers would be different. But Salesforce.org grants 10 licenses to every nonprofit, and these are enterprise level licenses, and it gives 75%, up to 75% discounts on all licenses after that. So there's really deep discounts to nonprofits, which allow nonprofits to use this world-class platform. Just to clarify a little bit, Salesforce.org, what happened is that with that 1% of resources that Mark was channeling towards the nonprofit, he started the foundation, which later became Salesforce.org. Salesforce.org is the nonprofit side of Salesforce. It's a reseller. It is a for-profit, it's a social enterprise. So it's actually not a nonprofit itself. It depends on the licenses that it sells to other nonprofits in order to stay in business. It has over 500 staff, and those staff are amazing. It's really an honor to work with them. One of the teams at Salesforce provides technology background to and creates a product called the Nonprofit Success Pack. So if you've heard of the NPSP, Nonprofit Success Pack, until this year it was called the Nonprofit Starter Pack. Now it's the Nonprofit Success Pack. That's what it stands for. It's the package that you can use to help your nonprofits use Salesforce more effectively. The way that the NPSP came into being was that a lot of consultants and a lot of customers and a lot of Salesforce employees got together in the early 2000s and started noticing that nonprofits all needed essentially the same things. And so they started to create different templates that would help nonprofits do their business. And as they created more people joined them, and you can see that through the years it's become a much more developed product. So I started using the Nonprofit Starter Pack in 2008 when it came out as version 2. And I've been at several of the sprints. So they have sprints that you can go and help take NPSP to the next level. I want to talk about the economics of this and what this actually means for nonprofits. So let's look at some numbers. Again, these are based on US numbers here. But if you were a for-profit company and you were paying for a full license, you'd be paying $150 a month per user for all the users in your org. Right? If you are granted that license, it's $36 a month after the first 10. So the annual cost for your licenses through .com for the first 10 licenses would be $18,000. And for .org, it would be nothing because those first 10 licenses are granted. The next 15 licenses would be $27,000 for a total annual cost of $45,000. If you are a nonprofit, however, your total annual cost is $6,480, just about $6,500. It's an enormous difference there, right? $38,000 every year that they save. What does this do over time? So over time, what that looks like is if you went 5 years, you essentially, that nonprofit would be using something that is worth $225,000 for a fraction of that cost. The savings over 5 years are almost $200,000, $190,000. Right? So this is what they would pay for in 5 years, and this is what they actually pay for in 5 years. So with that, there's a big question. Why aren't all nonprofits using Salesforce? Right? If they're saving so much money. Well, the question is kind of a setup because they wouldn't be paying that anyway, so obviously. But there's another reason. So I don't know if, oh, so that's Delta. One more time. Oh, sorry, go down. Okay. To the plane. Okay, good, thanks. Does anybody else here have a hard time explaining to their parents what they do, their job? Right? I've not, so I told my mom, I'm starting a business. She said, what is it? And I said, I'm going to help nonprofits use free software. And she said, you can't make any money helping nonprofits use something that's free. And I said, well, Mom, here's the thing. It's like this. Imagine if Salesforce gave every nonprofit a free 747. But that didn't come with pilots or a flight crew or any mechanics. So then the nonprofit would have this amazing, resource, but they wouldn't be able to do anything. They wouldn't know how to use it. They couldn't fly it anywhere. And so it would be rusting on the tarmac someplace. And so my mom looked at me and said, so you're a pilot? And at that point I gave up. Go ahead. Oh, there we go. That's what I was trying to show you. See, I put Air India up there. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much. All right. So this is why nonprofits aren't all using Salesforce. Because even though it's free, it's not usable. I want to talk about this a lot, the difference between a usable system and a useful system. So technically they can use it, but it isn't useful to them until they have experts in there showing them how to use it, which is where you come into place. So let's talk about what you give. That's what Salesforce has been giving. They give free 747s, not literally, but figuratively. They give nonprofit starter pack. They also do Trailhead and all of the other wonderful things that you already know about. What you give. Go ahead. I want to talk about the three most important things that you'll do for a nonprofit. And pay attention that only a fraction of what you're going to do for a nonprofit is actually that technical. The rest are all soft skills. So my team and I talk about this all the time. We're constantly honing our soft skills on this. So leadership. One of the most important things that you're going to provide to nonprofits is vision and leadership. The next thing is expertise. So, excuse me? You will need expertise in order to set up and customize nonprofit success pack and other parts of Salesforce. And then third, you're going to need support their internal development of expertise. You'll notice that this is actually not different than what you would do for a for-profit company, right? These are still the things that you do. This is what consulting and implementing is all about. So it's not different, but there are different unique challenges that face the nonprofit industry that are a little bit different. So, fundamentally though, the bottom line here is that you're not after just a usable system, you're after a useful system. And the difference there is legal. As a consultant, you can get paid for anything that is usable. If you can prove that you met the deliverable, you can get paid for it. But what we all know is that just because you've met the technical requirements does not mean that the client is actually able to effectively use the system that you created. Is that true? Do you find this to be the case? How many of you work on a system that technically works and is really frustrating? Right. This is the difference, and this is what we want to talk about. When I talk about giving leadership to nonprofits, nonprofits are, there's a lot that nonprofits just don't know about technology. So most of the time when we work with a nonprofit, they've never done an implementation or a technology project before. And they've never spent the amount of money that they're about to drop on my firm to do that. So they trust us a lot. Part of the reason that they trust is that we're very clear up front about being honest with what to expect from the implementation. We give these the audio guys a hand here. This is really hard. The stuff. Thank you for getting that. Yep. Thank you. I want to put this up because when we're talking about nonprofits, there's a common conception out there that nonprofits don't have any money, right? And I want to say that nonprofits don't need money, they need vision. That money always follows vision. And so what nonprofits are doing is that they are creating vision for their donors, and that you are creating vision for the nonprofit. So your vision is directly tied to their funding. Your vision doesn't have to be perfect. It does not always have to be good news. Your vision just needs to be honest about what they're going to expect. We're in the business of telling clients what to expect when they don't know what's coming down. So I want to show you 2 slides that we put on the slide deck that we introduce nonprofits to. So the first is this. How many of you have heard clients say, we don't know what we don't know? Is this said in your world? Have you heard this before? Right. Usually by the time someone's saying we don't know what we don't know, they're frustrated and upset about something, right? So we've learned after 6 years of doing this, we now have a list of things that we've heard. Oh, we didn't know this, we didn't know this. So we try and get in front of that and tell clients a couple of things that we know from doing this. And I'm sorry that this is so hard to read here. The first thing is that data is easy, information is hard. I have a whole long spiel that I can go into about that. I'm not going to, but we talk that through with the client. The second thing is that a successful outcome is a usable system, or useful system, not just a usable system. We've already talked about that. Third is that migrating legacy data is really time-consuming and expensive, usually both. Is that true? Do you find that to be the case? Data is just very, very time-consuming and expensive. Fourth, this is really important to tell clients. At some point in this project, you will not like us. You will think that we are, you'll be frustrated with us, you may be angry with us. When that happens, it's okay. It's going to be fine. That happens in most projects. This is a part of things, and it's okay. Sometimes if you go to a gym and you hire a personal trainer, you don't like that person all the time, because they're there to make you do something you don't necessarily want to do. That's our job, is to help nonprofits do some things that are really hard for them. So when that happens, we're going to talk about it, and it'll be okay. If you say that up front to the client, then when it happens, they're prepared for it, and you look like you knew what you were talking about, instead of like there's a big mistake happening. Yep. Is that true for other parts of Salesforce as well? Yeah? I see a lot of head nods out there. And then fifth, like all investments, this is about the long run, and this is really important to remind them. I usually tell clients, expect to start feeling comfortable with Salesforce at about 18 months, really comfortable with it. Expect to start reporting well with it in about 24 months. You'll run reports earlier than that, and you'll really understand it 24 months. And at 5 years is when you really start to pay off. And imagine if you're that nonprofit leader, you could tell them, if you had done this 5 years ago, imagine where you'd be today. Now, you are that version of you 5 years from now. So make this decision now and start planning for the future with this investment. Okay, so these are 5 things that we tell our clients. We also usually show them this so that they understand how projects work. I'm not going to go into that. I'm running short on time. But again, it's just demonstrating. Show them what to expect. Talk through what's coming up and help them know what it's going to be. The second thing is giving your expertise. So this is not a hands-on training about Nonprofit Success Pack. I'm going to show you a couple things about the Success Pack just so that you know it. But one thing about expertise is that you don't need to know 100% of everything. You just need to be a little bit further than anybody else. And I'm saying that because with nonprofits, it's actually a perfect opportunity to walk in and help them with their existing systems. If you just know a little bit more, you can still be helpful. So when I talk about expertise, I'm not talking about being the best or being perfect. Also, nonprofits really don't care if you're an admin or a developer or a flamenco dancer. They just don't care. They just want to know, can you help them? Last thing about this is that the expert is not the one that knows the most, it's the one that is helpful. We find this all the time when we do hiring for Now It Matters and we bring people in. We do a 2-week trial. We find the people that really, really work effectively with our team. And sometimes they don't know the most about Salesforce or about technology. But you can tell from the way that they work that they are going to be a good fit and that they are going to be the right kind of fit for your team. So often they don't know the most, but they're the ones that are going to know the most in the future and going to be the most helpful. I wanted to just do, in terms of getting started with the nonprofit success pack, I wanted to play this game of do this, not this, right? Okay, so do this. Volunteer for 3 months up front, and if you like it, then re-up and do some more time with that nonprofit. All I'm saying is start with an exit strategy with them. Don't just volunteer forever. Also, please don't volunteer just for a weekend to implement Salesforce and then go away. That's really, really hard for nonprofits. It doesn't really help. Secondly, when you start with them, have them identify an admin. This is really crucial. If you don't do this, that nonprofit will be dependent on you forever, right? And that is not a comfortable feeling. That's not helpful. You don't want that. Third, talk about what NPSP does. If you don't know what it does, access the community, which is coming up, so that you do know what it does. But tell them what it does. Don't just tell them Salesforce can do anything. Please don't say Salesforce can do anything. It can do a lot, and it probably can do almost anything technologically. Don't tell them that. It's not helpful. Tell them this is what it does, and start with this. If you need more, then we'll build it later. All right? This is really hard to do, because if you want to help the nonprofit, you want to say, oh yeah, we can do that. Oh yeah, we can send that list to everybody by email and text and fax. Does anybody use faxes anymore? We don't really use faxes. Okay. All right, use the household account model. If you're working with nonprofits and they have households, and most of them do, use that model. Don't create one contact with the first name of John and Jane Doe. Don't do this. Are we all seeing this in our data? People that use multiple contacts in one name? Yes. Don't do that. All right. The next follows from that. When you're migrating data, use the NPSP migration tools, or data migration tools for that. Use those tools. Don't assume that the data is okay to just import as is. Don't just push data in. It's not helpful. Next, use opportunity record types for donations. This is really important. Don't build a custom object for donations. Opportunity works great. Nonprofit centers around it, then you can use forecasting, you can use opportunity products, you can integrate with almost every, all of the payment processors are out there, so use opportunity, and NPSP comes with 8 preloaded record types. Use those record types. They're there, and after hundreds of iterations of other nonprofits using it, those are the ones that really help. And then last, create user-defined rollups and payment mappings. Sorry, that should say UDRs, not UDFs. User-defined rollups are a way to build aggregate functions within NPSP that can write to either the account, the household, or the contact. So you can run any kinds of numbers, and you can do that from payments on up. So use that. Don't build custom triggers unless you have to. And if you do build custom triggers, always align them within the table management structure of NPSP so that you can do asynchronous, or you can work with the triggers that already exist. Otherwise, you can blow out your governor limits really quickly. All right, helpful? Yes? No? Great. I want to just take 2 minutes and roll through a little bit of the nonprofit success settings tab. So this is kind of the setup menu of NPSP. So first of all, NPSP is something that you can download. If you actually look in the program, one of the free apps that's at the back of that is Nonprofit Starter Pack, which has been renamed Nonprofit Success Pack. So it's an app exchange listing. You can go and download it. When you download it, it will show up, and you'll have that tab, NPSP Settings. You can see that there's an app that's already been created for it. This right here is a list of all of the functions and settings within this. This is great because it means that you just change some settings rather than creating a whole bunch of code. It's really, really amazing how fast you can get a nonprofit up and running. I'm just going to take 4 things off of the People tab up here. So first of all, account model. The account model defines how households are created. The old version of that was to not use the accounts object. The new version is to use the accounts object. Always use the accounts object if possible. It's a much cleaner solution. Secondly is households. In 2012, I was around when, at a sprint, when they started talking about the household formula generator. It's something that runs in the background, and you can make adjustments to the household name format, and it will auto-name all of those households. In fact, there's some amazing functionality around managing households that happens within that. Relationships are a way of relating contacts to other contacts and defining what role that is. When you create a relationship, actually 2 records are created, one's reciprocal of the other. And if you define gender, then it will give you the options of what that relationship looks like to the other person relative to theirs and your gender. This is really, really helpful. This is all work that you don't have to do because it's already been done. Right? It's amazing. Yeah, great. Next. Relationship auto creation. This is the ability to create a relationship simply by populating a lookup. So if you have a contact record and you want to put that they are somebody's mentor or somebody is mentoring them, all you have to do is populate that contact lookup with a contact's name of the mentor. And it will create that mentor relationship for both records. Absolutely easy, flawless, works every time, super helpful. Nonprofits love this because it allows them to create networks of people and show how people are related. It will also tell you at the end of that, it'll say that, John Doe is Jane Doe's emergency contact. So it's got a script in there that will write that for you as well and put that into a formula text format. Anybody else really like PRDs a lot? Yeah. So I really like entity relationship diagrams. If you want to understand what goes on in the NPSP, this is a great place to look so you can see what happens with that. All right. Can you skip 2 slides right now? We're running a little bit late here, so I'm going to skip to what the community gives. How many of you are part of a user group? Or a women's technology group, or lead a group, or something like that? Thank you for doing that. I lead a group in Bozeman. And they actually are very excited and sent a hello to you. So I think that's on another slide, and I'm not sure it'll work. So these are tools. These are resources that are available to you through the through the community. So just like this is a community event, you can see a Dreamin event, there are other ways to be involved. So NPSP sprints. So this is where several people get together, like 60 people will gather for 2 days, and they will create documentation, reports, functionality, code for the NPSP. I would love to see an India NPSP sprint. So that we can make the NPSP work for Indian nonprofits. Power of Us Hub is a place where you can go and ask questions. Has anybody gone to Power of Us Hub and asked a question before? All right. It's amazing how fast people get back to you, right? Yep. They also host office hours, and it's just a very strong community of about 8,000, sorry, not 8,000, like 16,000 participants that are all working in nonprofits with Salesforce. Yeah, so my video is on my computer, so this is not going to work, but everybody from Bozeman User Group sends a big hello, so I'm sorry that you can't see it. Our user group won a contest, so one of the things that's great about user groups is that they have these contests, and so you can go and actually help your user group kind of gain some altitude for their personal careers and make a name for themselves, both in the user group and in the community. There's a New Delhi nonprofit user group. Is Akash here this morning? Can you make it? yesterday, and I've got a sweatshirt for him. But he's the first nonprofit user group leader in India. So he started a group in New Delhi. And I would highly recommend anybody who is interested in starting a nonprofit user group to talk to Akash about that. And to do it wherever you're at is great. I did that in Bozeman, which is a small town. There's only like 10 people in my user group. And it's enough, and it's great. It works really well. All right, I'm afraid that we are out of time. I don't think that I have time for questions. Is that right? Thank you so much for coming and listening to me talk about NPSD. Thank you.